Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting edition of the Security Repo Podcast. Have with us an awesome guest this week, but before we get to that, please like and subscribe. It really does help us out as a channel. We're joined this week by Lindsey. He is a seasoned speaker who has presented at many conferences and webinars and private events over the years. Chris draws on expertise from more than 15 years of direct security experience leading and building security programs, and over 35 years of experience leading teams in programming, software, solutions, and security architecture. 35 years. Did you start when you were like 10? Welcome to the show, Chris.
Almost. Thank you. Glad to be here on the show.
Well, great to have you. I went to your talk at Snowfrock, the OWASP event out in Denver this year, and you gave an amazing presentation. By the time this airs, this is actually, I think, that presentation is going to be available somewhere, a recording of it. And we'll link that out in the show notes because it's awesome. But we're not going to go through everything you did, but give us just a quick, super high level abstract that, we would read on the website.
Right. So think about it this way. A lot of companies are saying, you know what? It's time for AI. It's time for developers to start using AI because AI has all these benefits and we're going to reap the best of AI's benefits. And so with the company's permissions or not, because there's a lot of cases where shadow AI is occurring, a lot of developers are starting to just grab AI and run with it. And one of the things that we're actually seeing in the industry is a lot of the developers who are just coming out of college. So they're the junior developers. They're coming out that they've played with AI in college, and now they're taking these skills out. And what we've found is AI in general is really awesome, depending on which model you use. There's many vendors out there, and some are much better than others. And what we learned was, when you look at the quality of the results, they look stunning from the beginning. Hey, this is great. And so what this talk is we took the approach of, I want to write an entire application purely by prompting. It is a C# backend API that is just doing the person entity, the basics, CRUD, create, read, update, delete, with a simple front end that allows you to make the modifications and tie the two together. So that's the kind of high level premise. And the question becomes, is it secure? That's the big question mark.
And that was what you revealed. And that's what you're going to have to go off of this program, everybody else listening, to go see a version of this for yourself online. Well, again, we'll link to it if we can get a recording added by the time this goes live. You said something interesting in there, caught my ear, and I'd love to drill in that before we start drilling into the why you did this and some of the background on it. But you said the word shadow AI. Now, I'm familiar with shadow IT,
right.
The concept of, well, I'm just going to use whatever tools I want. I'm not going to go through security. I'm going to go set a box under my desk, and that's going to be my little project. So is shadow AI similar, or what do you mean by shadow AI?
It's very similar. So think about it this way. A developer is sitting at home. They're sitting at their desk at work, wherever they're working from, and they need something. And I'm working on this little bit of source code, and I want to refactor it. And I'm just looking at it going, I don't know how to refactor this. I don't know how to make it better. So I'll just open up a ChatGPT prompt or a Microsoft Copilot prompt, or maybe even a prompt of, pick one like Claude 3.7 is beautiful. So you open these prompts and you simply just copy and paste that code in and you just let it rip. Hey, is this the best refactoring we can do? Or could you refactor this better? Or is this code clean? Or is this code secure? Typed it in, paste the code and send. What's happening here is you're sending intellectual property directly into maybe an account that is free. And any accounts that are free have the right to train on your data. A lot of them explicitly say, hey, we're allowed to train on your data. Now, when you look at paid accounts, in some cases, you do have the ability to turn that off and say, I don't want to train on this data. So now what's happening is with Shadow AI, you have developers using plugins right into the IDEs that are sending to these AI systems, asking questions, possibly on an open account or somebody else's account where they can actually get back and see the data. So AI is now training on your data and what you're sending in. And so really the downstream effect of this is now you're losing your intellectual property to these devices, and they're training on it. And somebody else may end up getting your code inadvertently when they say, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And I know only one or two companies are doing that. And it's possible that they get a copy of your code.
So that's something we talk about a lot here. I work at Get Guardian, and our worry is that it's not just intellectual property, it's actual secrets, the actual API keys and tokens and whatnot that are going to be long lived, that it's going to spit it out. It's just going to work, and it works. So why would you question it? Let's just push it to production. But let's get back to the talk. What inspired that? Like, why were you sitting around thinking, like, can I vibe code for, that's the word going around right now, kind of vibe code a secure application? Like, what's the thought process behind that?
So my thought process, so with 35 years of development, I'm hearing and talking to all these companies who are telling me, hey, our developers are using AI. We're saving 30, 40, 50% of our time, getting applications out the door. From the outside, 50% time savings for, writing an application, that's huge. That's massive. Why wouldn't you? That becomes the question. Why wouldn't you? And when you realize that, and if you're a seasoned developer and you're software architect, senior developer, you understand the code it's generating, all of a sudden you're going, well, I wouldn't have coded it that way, or it didn't consider these different things. For example, a junior developer may go into an API and say, I need a new endpoint, copy something, paste it. I call it notepad inheritance, but they may have copied an endpoint that didn't have any security aspects enabled. And so normally you would want like role-based access, or if you're a multi-tenant system, you would really want the ability to say, is this person able to actually pull that data? These are things that AI simply ignores. But not only that, but you look at SQL injections and cross-site script injections and just all this stuff in general. And the fun part was when I was doing this, the question was, okay, I generated some code. It looks good, but is it right? So then I said, are you secure? And it came back and it said, no, I found all these things that are insecure. So then I'm like, well, would you fix them? So it fixed them. And then I looked at it and I said, great, it added some stuff, but is it secure? So I asked it again and it said, oh, I found more stuff. So when developers are just throwing stuff at ChatGPT or any of the GPT systems, they're getting code and they're like, hey, is this secure? No. Okay, we'll fix it. Boom. And then they run with it, not realizing that, it's an iterative process. You may have to hit it 5 or 6 times. And even if you hit it all the times and it comes back and it says, hey, you are sparkly clean with security, once you go in through an enterprise tool, you'll find there are still more things that the GPT systems completely missed.
But how different is that than just your normal development process? I mean, the reason I think a lot of developers hate security tools is because it just throws error after error and alert after alert. Is it a high? Do you think it's a higher rate? Have you investigated that deeply? Like, is this a higher rate of insecure code than, say, your mid-tier or junior dev?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Think about it this way. If you're creating a database query, you're going against the database for a read or a write or something, you're going to think about, well, we're going to create a store proc because that's how we do it. We're going to do a command parameterization to the store proc, so that way there's no SQL injection. And there's certain processes that we follow. Even if you go in and ask ChatGPT or any of these systems to create it that way, it still will actually do things that are insecure. For example, I had an example come through from ChatGPT where it was actually going through and trying to clean up my query directly. And so, normally command parameterization is the answer when you're dealing with stored procs and SQL injection, but it was trying to actually go through and look for bad things, all these regexes and all this approach that you would never in your right mind put together. And a junior developer may look at it and go, you know what? Hey, it's great. It's good. It's got a validation method that goes through and says, hey, is there anything funky with this? oh no, it's not funky, you're good. And then you just have, a pen tester or someone that knows what they're doing walk right around that.
Yeah, it reminds me of something at that same event. Ethan Warcell from Mob gave a pretty good talk on trying to fix security bugs specifically with AI. And he's like, a certain percentage of the time, it just erases the line. And yeah,
Mhm.
that makes the error go away. It causes horrible other consequences, but it does
Yes.
technically fix it. I did want to ask you something. You said kind of offhand there, notebook inheritance. Is that what you said earlier?
Notepad inheritance.
Notepad inheritance. What is that?
Yes. So notepad inheritance is where you just simply copy and paste. So you open up code, you go, this looks like what I want or what I need. It's already in your existing application, or it could even be from something like Stack Overflow or well, even now GPTs. And you just simply copy and paste it directly into your system. So that's jokingly called notepad inheritance.
Okay, that's a new term for me today. And so I'm curious what we do about this. Like in theory, you're submitting these things, they're getting reviewed, and then you're learning through the review process. But what's the advice? Should people start trying to iterate on this and just add more lines of code and whatever it's doing before they make the pull request, before they make that commit and say, hey, somebody else review this? Or what's the general advice you have?
So my general advice is if you're a junior developer or just getting started, try to avoid the desire to do this. Learn the foundations, learn the basics, because when you understand what good, clean code looks like, and then you see something that isn't clean, ding, ding, I should fix this.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is during your senior tech review, the senior tech review needs to have identified this code is AI generated code. So that way it could actually be reviewed a little bit deeper instead of just a quick glance going, does this match? Yeah, it looks right. Now the reviewer looking at it says, hey, some of this code was AI generated. So I should really pay a little bit more attention to it just to make sure that nothing is slipping through, because even the best senior tech reviewers can miss things.
And yeah, that's the general nature of it is that's why we use tools, isn't it? It's like to help
Yeah.
us find these things. I guess that's really an argument in part to shift left on the tooling
Mm-hmm.
and shift the conversations to be more broad, like teaching moments. Uh,
Right.
okay. I really like that. Time to move on to a more structured part of the show, and that is to ask you a few questions to get to know you as a practitioner out in the world. So we always
Yes.
ask all of our guests these 4 questions. Uh, First, what is your favorite security command line tool?
Ooh, favorite security command line tool. Gosh, honestly, I don't have a favorite because I have so many that I go to. And I I would do a disservice if I started actually listing them because I know I would miss something, but there's so many great ones out there.
Fair enough. We hear netcat a lot. It's the general just go-to answer, or nmap. And you've been a hiring manager. You've had a pretty illustrious career. I'd love to find out a little bit more about your origin story after we get through these questions. But what's your go-to favorite question when you're hiring someone for a security role?
So my favorite question is, and it comes across really kind of weird, and I have to admit that. Um, what do you do with your spare time in the evening? And I say that because your developers are going to work on side projects or open source projects. Your security guys are going to have home labs. You can kind of see one of the servers behind me. I have a home lab here. I can do a lot of amazing things. I can replicate an entire company here from home. And so when I'm interviewing, I always ask, what kind of stuff do you do for continuing to learn and educate yourself? Because in our field, if you stop or slow down, the world will pass you by.
Oh, that's absolutely true. I watch a lot of YouTube myself, so it's a good way to stay up on a lot of topics because YouTubers are pretty passionate about what they're passionate about.
Yes.
You can give a shout out to Jeff Geerling, an old friend of mine, but he started his YouTube channel on with Ansible and then moved on to Raspberry Pi stuff, and then it's when he blew
Mhm.
up. But yeah, I'm staying on the cutting edge of like power over Ethernet right now on those little devices through that. All right, I think pretty much everybody's favorite part of the show, especially since we've been breaking these out into shorts, and those are going pretty well. best advice, worst advice. So let's start with the best. What's the best overall security advice you can give us?
The best security advice: never make shortcuts. And what I mean by that is, if you are doing a hot fix and you have to get something out the door as quickly as possible, kick off your scans as soon as you've committed your code. You can disable them in the pipeline, but do not skip the step of kicking off the code at commit time, because then by the time you get to QA, hopefully you know, am I secure? Or by the time you get to past QA and you're getting ready to go to production, you're secure. Or you know if you're secure. The best thing that could happen is if it takes 9 hours to scan your software, you're already in production, and within a very short time, you know how bad or good you are. There's some tools that are super quick, some tools that can take time. Some of the ones like the 9 hours plus is 15 to 20 million lines of production code that it took to go through. So just to kind of give you an idea of scale.
How many lines of code?
15 to 20 million lines of production code.
That is a lot of friggin' code. All right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So opposite side, what's the worst security advice that you can give, or that you've heard out there? Not that you give it, but that you've heard someone give.
Just ship it.
Wow. There's entire business models built on that. So
yes. Yep. Just ship it. Get it out the door.
Oh man. Well, actually, I would like to circle back around to the thing said earlier, to a comment I made earlier. 35 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
What's your origin story of getting into tech?
So my brother Dan wrote a game on the Commodore 64 called Eliminator. Actually, we go a little bit more rewind. TRS-80 Model 1, first computer we had in our house. My brother Dan, it was his, and I got to play with it. I was programming things out of the back of magazines. Crazy Climber was my first app that I ever wrote out of the back of magazine. Loved it and fell in love with computers. That was back before you could even save it to, well, he didn't have anything to save it on tapes or anything. And so you'd key it in. As soon as you turned off the computer, you had to start over. Then the Commodore 64 era, my brother Dan was writing it in the early 80s. In 83, I got my first Commodore 64, and I started getting into bulletin boards and writing software. And so I wrote multiple applications on the Commodore 64 that I sold and went nationwide. As a matter of fact, my one of the discs that I wrote in 1984, and I sold it at the Commodore Users Group in Kansas City, made its way up to Canada and back. And 38, 39 years later, my brother Scott bought a whole stack of floppy disks, and this was in there. And so I actually have that hanging on my wall as kind of a fun keepsake and a memory thing. And it's just amazing imagining it. But I've always been coding. I've done things, run bulletin boards in Kansas City. So I've always been very tech related. And when I went off to college, well, right out of high school, I wrote a cash register system in Pascal. Went off to college because I knew that college was important. And in college, I have tons of fun stories, but I was writing classroom management systems for a technology company while I was in college. Came out of college, and I've done healthcare really since then, and just amazing things. I'm very tech heavy. I love good tech, and it's just a passion of mine.
That's awesome, man. What a path. And now you're here talking to me on this podcast. So that's an amazing journey, man. Well, I want to say thanks so much for being here. We always love to give our guests the last opportunity. Anything you want to plug, anything you want to tell us, anything else you want us to know, the floor is yours.
Yeah. I'm going to leave you with this. If you're not, if you're not moving forward, you're falling behind. Always, always, always have an open mind when you're learning things. Do not come in with perceived ideas or notions that certain things can't be done. There's always a way to do stuff. And the question is it the best? Maybe not. But if you keep an open mind and you think outside the box, you're going to do amazing things. Do not put a glass ceiling on top of you. Shadow right through. Do amazing things.
I'm not even going to add anything to that. I'm going to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing that with us. Remember, everybody, like, subscribe, tell your friends. And Chris, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me today.